Welcome guys, welcome to this video. In this video we are going to use Laravel, Vue and Vuex, and we are going to create a complete CRUD. So this is an employee management system. We are going to include the sorting, as well as we are going to put the search feature. So if I search here for user, you can see straight away we just get user. If I search Tom, so only the Tom user employee data is here. We can sort using clicking by this. We have the show, edit, and delete. So we click show, we go to each page, and we can't, we just can see it, we can't edit it. We can go back, then we go to edit, and we can update the details, anything we want to update. So we save it, it is gonna give us the employee update and employees getting updated. You can see there. Now we also have add employee, so we can create a new employee straight away, and also we can delete employee as well. So if I want to delete user, simply create here. It says, are you sure you want to delete? I say okay, and without refreshing page, we are deleting the user. Now when we go to add employee, there the thing is we have the validation at place. So this is something that is also we are going to be implementing. So we will be using the advanced Vuex format, and I will provide you with the complete code that you need to create this application. So let's get started and let's see how we can build this. Alright guys, this is done with. I'm on the Laravel website. To install and create the project, we have to run the commands. I will be running now. I also have the installation for Vue.js, also Vuex website open. So let's do step by step. So what I do here, I have the CMD PowerShell open here. So I'm just simply gonna say cd desktop, and I will be on desktop now. You can see. Now here I need to run this command. So before running this command, make sure you have Composer installed. And if it is not installed, you can follow the link from the description to install the Composer. Now here I'm gonna say here project, name of the folder, and I'm going to run this command. Now it is going to create a project folder for us. It is going to put all the files. You can see it just created this folder here, and we need to wait till it completes. Alright guys, so it completed and the project is there. Now before going any further, I have the Composer side open. Now if you want to install that, just go to download. Here, if you are on Mac operating system, you can run these commands. If you are on Windows, all you need to do is install this exe file. You can download from here. Now we will be using the Node packages, so you need to install the Node.js. You can install the recommended version for most users, you can see here. And yeah, it will work for your all operating systems. Okay, so now what we need to do, we need to open this folder in our text editor. I'm going to use the Visual Studio for this one, and I have here, I'm gonna drag and drop the folder. Alright, so our application is now open here. Okay. So if now what we need to do to run the project, we need to go back to our CMD here, and now I am going to go to the CD project. Now this is the folder that we created in previous command, if you remember here, and that folder is here. So we need to go inside this folder, and here we say PHP artisan serve, so it will run a local server. Now running a local server here, so we can go on this URL. So we just gonna copy this, and you can see our Laravel application is up here. Alright, now let's go back to text editor. Here we have the file structure, something like this. So if we go into the resource folder, we have the views folder here. If we open this, we have welcome.blade file. This file is responsible for this outcome that you're seeing on the page. And also we have routes folder in the web.php is the main route where we tell which file to load for the URLs. So here we are saying that if the user goes to / that means homepage, then look for welcome.blade, which is here, and it is loading that. Now currently if I go to the application, we have only this single page, there's nothing else going on here, but we want the authentication for user, we want Vue.js also working. So for that, what we need to do, we need to go in the PowerShell. I go into the directory, so cd desktop /project, because I have it on the desktop. So I clear the screen here. I'm going to run here Laravel UI package. So it's going to be this composer require Laravel UI. It is going to install it. After that, we need the login and registration page, and I want to use the Vue login registration. So I'm gonna run this package, and you can see there's authentication scaffolding generated successfully. If I go back here this time and refresh the page, you will see we have login and registration page up here. Now currently the CSS is not working here, and we will be correcting it in a moment. Now if I go back in the directory, the thing is here in the JS folder, now we have the components directory, which was not present before. Now if I open this folder, we have an example component. So we Laravel installed a Vue component for us, just a sample component for now, to show us how things gonna work. And in a moment we will be seeing it, how we can use this component. Now also, if I close this directory, in Vue directory we now have the auth folder. In auth folder we have login registration page. So if I go to login page, and this page is coming from this login.blade. And also we got now the layouts directory where we have the app.blade. It's the layout file. Alright, now if I scroll down here, so if I install any composer package, it goes here. You can see that we installed the Laravel UI. It came here with the version number. And if you install any npm package, it goes in package.json. So here it is going to be added in this. Alright, so what we need to do, we need to install npm command here. So what I'm going to say npm install. So all required npm packages will be installed. So it is going to check inside the package.json if, for example, the Axios, if it is not installed, it is going to install it. So any package listed here will be installed. And go back to the PowerShell. We need to wait till it completes. Alright guys, so it's installed, and now we have the package install here. Now I'm going to run a command. It is going to install a few packages. So let me copy and paste the command here. So I just paste here. So basically what we are saying, we need a few packages for our project. So I'm saying npm install npm template compiler, npm loader, so loading for loading component, for routing. And we have Vuex because we want to use Vuex in our project. We will be using Axios to doing the HTTP requests. We will be using Axios, and we want to install these packages and save these in our package.json as well. So I install these, and we need to wait till these install in our project. Alright, packages are installed. If you go back to package.json this time, you will see that we have all these packages listed. So currently these version numbers are the latest version numbers, and so we have the latest versions installed. Alright, so what we need to do here, whenever we are going to work with the Vue files, and we need to compile every time. So for compiling, we will be using a command. It is going to be npm run dev. So this is the command we will be running a lot. And what exactly it is going to do, it is going to compile everything, all Vue JS files, and once it is ready, you can see that compiled successfully, and we will be able to see the CSS and everything working. So if I refresh now, page will look a lot different. So refresh, you can see everything is now working. Now if I go to home page, it's the same. Now here, because we compiled everything now at place. Alright, so what we need to do now, first of all, we need to work with Vue.js. So let's get started and use our first component. So here in resources, Vue, JS component. So here we have a component, and it's example component. So this is the content it is going to show when we're going to use it. Now currently, if I go to app.js, this is a file where we register the component. So I'm gonna make it a little big. Alright, so here you can see view.component. We are telling that this is the component we are registering. It is in the components directory. We want to call this component with this name. You can see that it's giving the example on top. How can we call the component? And we are registering the element. And in a moment I'm going to show you what exactly is happening here. We are binding a div with the ID of app with Vue.js, and inside that div we can call this component. So what we do, basically, we have this component. Let's use this component. Alright, so we have the ID of app here, and what we want to do, let's go back to the project structure. Here we have home blade and welcome blade. Currently in the same directory, I'm going to create another file, and I'm going to call it example.blade.php. And what we need to do, something like that is done in home.blade. This is using the app layout, and layout is inside the app.blade. And if I go in this app.blade, basically we have all the CSS, compiled CSS and JS included in this file. So let's see what we need to do. We simply say here add extends, and here we need to extend the layout app.blade. So it's in layouts directory, layouts.app. Alright, so this is how you do it. Then we say section, and here in section we need to let me first end section, and when we do end section we need to put at the start as well. So if I go to app.blade, we are extending this file app.blade in our example.blade.php. Now here we say section, so whatever we're gonna put here is going to be inserted in this file. So here we are yielding, you can see content. So if there is any section with the name of content, that will be inserted here. So if I copy this name and put an example and the section name like this, so anything if I put inside this section start and section end, that is going to be inserted here, if it makes sense. So what I do, I save this, and both files are saved now. So what we need to do here, we need to go to this file, and currently our home page is powered by the route. So route is given in web.php here. So if you remember here, so what I do is just simply copy this, and I say here about. Alright, so when we go to /about, it should be from let's say example. So now we are saying, okay, if you go to home page, use welcome.blade. If you go to /about, go to example.blade. Alright, so here in example we are extending the layout, and then we have the content. Now if you remember, in app.js we have an element of ID app, so we need to create that. So here we do that, so we say div, and we say ID of app, and inside this we can call the component. So you remember here it says how we can call the component, it's given here. So just copy this, go back and paste here. Nothing complicated, simply because we have the ID of app, it is going to bind with Vue.js, and then it is going to work with this component. Now as we made the changes using Vue files, we need to compile it. So for compiling it, you can either run npm run dev or npm run watch. Now the difference is, if you run npm run watch, you don't need to rerun the command. It is going to see the changes. If you're making any changes in your view files, it is going to compile automatically. If you run npm run dev, then you need to run it next time as well. If you make some changes and you want to see the updates, you need to run this command. So that's totally up to you, whichever you prefer. So I'm going to run the npm run dev, and it's going to recompile everything for us. And compiled. Now let's go back here in our application. Now here, if I say now the route we looking for is /about. Now when we go to /about, you can see that we have a view component showing up here. So here this is working. So if I want to make some changes, I go to this component. Alright, and you can see that the same example component, everything's here. So Vue.js, simple. So alright guys, so the VS Code extension was giving some issue. Now I'm going to recompile, and you can see it was breaking some HTML that was causing the error, so I corrected it behind the scenes. Now if I go back and refresh, all is working just fine. So if I go in here in text editor, here we added the Vue.js. So if you can see I'm making changes here. Example component Vue.js project. So whenever I do this, all I need to do is run the command, and the changes will be reflected. So go here, refresh, and you can see. So yeah, it's working. Our first component we created and loaded, it's working just fine now. So now if I go here in .env file, we have the database connection as Laravel and root and password. Now if I try to go to let's say localhost /php myadmin, I won't get this because I'm running this PHP server using PHP artisan sub. So for this, what we need to do, we need to make sure we have the XAMPP installed and running. So I have the XAMPP installed. You can download the XAMPP from the link given in the description, and just make sure it's running. Now it's just running. So if I now refresh, we should be getting the PHP admin. Now what we do, we create a database here. So you can give it any name. So here the data by default provided as Laravel, so we can use the same. I'm gonna create the database with name Laravel, and yeah, now the password by default is going to be root user, and password is going to be none. So I'm gonna close this file. Now what do we need to do? We need to create a migration file. So we want to make an employee management system. So for that, we need to have an employee table. So for that, what I do, I go back to the PowerShell, and here we run PHP artisan, and I'm going to say make migration, and spelling should be correct, and name going to be create _ employee _ table. Alright, now I'm going to run this. It created the file for us. We need to go into our text editor. Here in database migrations, we have few migrations provided by default, and here if you see we have the create employee table. So here we need to modify it. So we need to add few fields here. So by default, there is a field going to be added, add ID as well as dates for created _ and updated _ But here, what we want, I also want to have a field name. So I'm gonna save here name. Then also we want department. So it's gonna be string as well. So it's gonna be department. All right, table. Another field I want is section. So in department which section employee works in. So it's going to be section, and we can give email table. So employee email we can pass here, and at last I want to have a status, so we can say table and the integer, and it's going to be status. If you want to pass default value, we can pass a default value. So for default, whatever value you pass, it's going to be inserted if you inform you're not providing the value, so it is going to insert 0 by default. Alright, so this is the migration for us. Now we need to run this migration to create a table, because currently we don't have it, so let's do that. So we go back to the PowerShell here. I clear first, and then PHP artisan migrate, and we have an error here. Okay, I made a mistake by typing wrong. It says table here, it's gonna be table. Sorry about that. We need to rerun the migration, so let's go back here, clear the screen, and PHP artisan migrate, and it created the table. Now if I refresh here, we have few tables, and the most is the employee that we just created. So the structure we were looking for: name, department, section, email, status. Now for dealing with the database, we need to create the model as well as controller. So let's do that. Again, open the PowerShell here. I'm gonna say PHP artisan make model, and it's going to be employee model. So I run this, it's going to create a file. Let's go in that file. So I'm going to close the database folder. In app models, we have employee model now. So here in employee model, so what do we need to do? We need to define a fillable. So what exactly it is, whenever we are going to insert data in these fields, they're going to be check from the Laravel to check for mass assignment. So basically, whenever we put the data, it checks for that, and if we provide the fillable values here, it is going to allow us to insert data without any issue. So to do that, only we do here protected, and then we need to pass here a variable fillable, and basically it is an array. And what exactly is this array gonna have? This array gonna have all the values. So we have name, so whatever field you want values to insert without any problem, you can just provide here. So I'm just gonna copy paste to speed up the things a bit. We have section, and then we have email and status. So yeah, email, status. All right, now I'm gonna save this file. So our model is ready from this angle. Now what I want to do, I want to create a controller as well. So again, clear PHP artisan make controller. Now when you create controller should be plural and model should be singular. So here I'm going to say employee controller. Alright, spelling should be correct. I create the file. Now it should be inside HTTP. I close the models directory. In HTTP controllers, we have the employees controller. So model should be singular and controller should be plural. Now here we need to create a method. So I'm going to create a method or a function, whatever you want to call it. It's going to be a public function, and I'm going to say create, or you can call it whatever you prefer, but for this purpose it's better to call it create. Now here I want to pass the view for the page where we will be creating the employee. So for that we need to say return and it's going to return a view, and its view we need to say, let's say form. So we need to create a form.blade.php. Now we need to have the directory so that if we do any other functionality, we have separate directories for it. So this form should be inside a folder. So I'm going to call employee.form. So what happens if I go here, I can close this in our views directory here. We need to create a folder, and that's going to be employee. And inside this folder, we're going to call the form.blade.php. So here it's going to be form.blade.php. So you can see that here we created a folder, then the page, and we are calling it in our controller like that. All right. Now here, what we need to do, we need to extend the same way we did in the example, if you remember in here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy this from here and go into the form. Yeah, I have open here. You can paste here. So we have content, ID of app. For the component, we need to create a new component here. We will be creating the component, but before that I want to see if this page is working. So what we need to do, we need to create a route, so where we go, so user can go to that page to create the employee, add the new employee. So if I go back here, we need to go to the web.php, and here we need to define a route. So here, what I do here, add another route. And I'm gonna say route get, all right, and it's gonna be add dash employee. Okay, and here we need to tell the controller. So here we pass the employees controller as it's a class, and we need to tell method, and we are telling that it's a create method. Now this needs to be included on top so that we can use it. So make sure you have it included. App /http controllers let's see if I'm going right. So app http, then we have controllers, and then we have our employee controller. So just gonna call it there. Okay, so all good. So we are calling it on top and using it here, and this is the method for this route. So now if we go to this route, we should if I go to form, currently we don't have anything, so I say hello, and we go here and just put that here, and you can see we get hello. Now let's create a component for it. So we go back here in files, we need to go inside JS components, and here we need to create a component. So I'm going to call a folder, and so creating a folder will give us more freedom so that we can work with multiple types if we want in future. So if I simply say here employee, so all the employee components will be in this folder, and here I'm going to create a new component, and I'm going to call it employee form.view. All right. Now by default it is empty, so we can get the content from example dot component, which is by default provided by Laravel. So I'm gonna close this file, go back to our component, employee form component, paste this here. So you can see that we have our component there. Now, as we just created this component, we need to register this component. So we go to app.js. If we are not going to register it, it's not going to work. So here, I'm just going to copy this, and here we are going to tell that it is inside and then it is employee form, so I can copy the name. All right, employee form.view. So here we can say we want to call it like this. Okay, so we just can copy this. Now what we need to do, I close this file, and we don't need to have this file open, so I close that too. Now I need to go to form.blade, and here instead of hello you're gonna pass this component. Alright, so this component should be working now. Now if we go in component here, I say hello from employee form component. Alright, so if I refresh here, it's not showing because we need to compile it. So let's compile. So I'm already in the project, so I say npm run dev, and it is going to update our Vue.js file, the content showing up. So let's refresh. You can see that hello from employee form. When we work with Vue.js in the Laravel project, we can use Vue libraries to make our lives easy. So I have a library that we will be using in project that is going to do a lot of work and going to save a lot of our time. We need to use this element. To use this, we need to install it, just like running this command. And this gives us the freedom to use a lot of its components. So we have here a few components. We can have buttons, we can have links, date picker. So you can see that the animation and uploads, you can have an animation like this. So you can check this a lot. There are so many features in this element. So what we need to do first, we need to install it, and let's get started with this. So I say installation, and I copy this command. Then I go to our application, and here I simply paste it, and it is going to install our package. Alright, all done. So if I go back to text editor, in here in package.json, we should be having our this package included. So yeah, you can see that element.ui 2.15.6 version. So I just close this. Now what we need to do, we need to include it because we just installed it. We haven't told our Vue app to use it. So if I go to app.js, here we have our app, right? And we have our two routes. So what I do, I simply first clear the comments so we have more space. I currently, so whatever we're gonna include, it's gonna be easy for us to see. Now what I want to do, go to quick start, scroll down. Here we have import Vue. We need these statements, so we need to copy these and go back here. Paste here. Now it includes. Now we need to tell that okay, we imported the element UI, now use it in our application. So for that, there is the statement view.use. So just simply go there and paste here. So we're telling that okay, bind this element UI with our view, which is here. All right. Okay, so from the installation point, it is done. Now we can use a lot of their components. So if I go in here and search for card, so we have cards here and we can use these cards. Now before starting to use this, I want to pass some data to our employee component. So here what I'm going to do, I'm going to pass data variable. So here simply as a $data, and this is going to be an array. All right, and basically if you want to use your form for multiple things, you can define a scope. So I say here scope, and I say create. So we are telling that this form we are going to use for create functionality. Now for passing the data, we can simply say with $data. Now as we are passing this data here, and if I go to form.blade, here we are calling our component, so we have access to the scope. So we can pass that scope to our employee form component. So here simply I put space, and here I'm gonna say scope equals, and we need to pass it like this. So it's gonna be $scope. Alright. Also, I'm going to pass an ID. So let's pass that and remove the comma. We don't need it. So it's going to be ID, and I want to say $ID, or if there is ID then fine, otherwise pass 0. That's all it means. And to pass it, we need to put colon here. That's how you put in view. So in a moment you will see how it works. So for now, just to make sure to be a passing scope, and it is going to be coming from our controller. It is create scope, and also ID. If set, then it's going to be the ID, otherwise it's going to be 0. Now if we go to employee form, here if I go back, so here we have the element card. So I'm just going to copy this starting portion of it. Let's take a whole copy, go back here. In container, I'm just going to remove everything because we don't need it. And here now we have this. We don't need this, and we don't need this either. So we delete this. Alright, so here to see everything is working, I say hello one more time, and let's update and see if we are getting this package without any issue or not. So I run the npm run dev, and okay, it's completed. Go back here, refresh. We have hello. So you can see that it's a nice card there. So that means our package is working just fine. So what we can do now, we can go further, and this time what I'm going to look for, I want to go for the page header. So scroll down and look for the component page header. It's here. Expand, and we need to copy this. So I copy this here, go back to the code editor, and I removed hello. And here I'm simply going to put the element page header. Okay, and so we are saying here there's going to be a go back function. We are going to write that function now, but we don't have currently. So add back, run that function. For the content, we have detail. Just leave it as it is for now. Now we also want a form. So what we do, I'm gonna put here a div just below this header, and inside this div we're going to create element form. So if I go to element UI here, I'll look for form. So we can see how they use the form. So we have the form something like this. I just copy the top of here. By rest is we're going to type one by one. So I close the element form. Alright. Okay, so here first thing is we have reference to form, model form, and here we are going to remove the width. I'm going to say here, actually I'm going to change this form to employee form. Okay, so here we're going to create rows. So as we need to add L, so it's going to be L row. Alright, and here we pass property. It's going to be color. It equals 10. Now for this you need to read the documentation from element UI, what features does what. So here I'm just going to pass another element form item. Alright, and here we need to pass a few things. So here first thing first, I want to pass a label, because this is going to be for getting a name, employee name. It's going to be required, and and we will be getting the validation out of the box using this element UI. That's the reason I used it. Now here we're going to call prop. This is going to be used by this library, so we're going to pass name. Alright, so this is how we do it. Now inside we need to create an input, so here are going to be element input. Yeah, element input. I don't need to close it this way, so I can remove it. Sorry about that. Now here in element input we say we model. Alright, so we will be getting the values using Vue.js. So I'm gonna put here form.name. So form.name we need to have the value, and we want to have a placeholder, so I pass a placeholder here. We can break the line so we can see it easily, and it's going to be employee name. Alright, now we need more things, so what we can do, we can simply copy and paste this element form element, and here 1, 3, 4. So we need name, we need department, and here it's going to be department, and same way we will be putting the value in form.department, and here I can copy and paste department name. Alright, then we need the section, so I'm going to call here section, and prop going to be section as well. In the form.section it's going to be, and section name. And after that we need email, so we say email, prop email, form.email, and email address. Okay, now we also need a button. So what I do is make it a bit separately. So I create an element row here, and inside this element row, again I'm going to pass here gutter 10. Then here what we don't do, we can say element form item, and inside it we need the button. So element button. Close the button. Now here I want to have this, let's say type. I want to pass it as success. It's going to be a green button. At click we want to have a function, and I want to have this, let's say save form, and here inside the button for the text we can say save. Now we need to pass the form name so that we know which form we are passing. So we can pass the same way with the way we're referencing this form. So I passed name here. Alright, so it's a string we are passing. No, please note. Alright, so far so good. We have this working. Now if I compile now, it is going to give us errors because we mentioned here we model form, email, but we don't have anything here. We also mentioned the function save form, but we don't have those functions here. So to work with it, we need to create those things. So let's do that. So here below mounted, I'm going to, first of all, I'm going to give it a name to this component, and I'm going to call it employee form, comma, you separate it with comma, then put comma, and here we need to have data, and data is going to be returning an object. So here it's going to be return object. Okay, and we are storing values in form, say form.email, form.section. So we will be having a form object, so it's going to be just like this, and then we need these values. So form.name, so it's going to be name. By default it's going to be null. Then going to be, I think, the department, by default null. Then we have section, it is also null, and at last we have email, it is null as well. Alright, so we have these values there. Now if you want to, now the syntax how we are doing this, you can go into the view, and here if you look for introduction, scroll down, you will see that this is how we do it. We have the element already assigned in app.js. We use data like this. We are using it as a function because we in the Laravel application we use it this way. And here if you scroll down you will see more things, so you can check here. So we can see that we are passing the data the way, and we can pass methods as well that we're going to use. So we need to use methods, so let's do that. We need 2 methods in our program. So for here, after data we say methods, and for methods it's going to be just like that. And here we say go back, and here I'm going to say window dot location dot href. It's going to be / employees. Okay, semicolon. This is the first function. So when we click on this function, it's going to redirect us to this route. Now we also want the save form. All right, and here I just say alert, and we are passing a string. If you remember, we are passing same form and the reference of this form. So I'm just gonna alert that to see if it is working. So it is form name. So we are passing it so we can get it. So we simply pass it here. Alright, let's see if it is working or we are facing some error. So for that we need to compile it, if you remember, as it's the change in view components we are doing. Okay, so if you notice, I forgot to add the end for element input. You can see it has no matching end tag. So if I go back to code editor, our input element is here. We simply need to pass the element end here. So I'm just going to copy this and paste to here as well as here, and for the email as well. Alright, now let's recompile it and see if it works. So go back, npm run dev. Alright, this time it's been successful. Let's see here, refresh. Okay, we have the form here. So if I make it big a bit, so if I click here, click outside, you see it says name is required, department is required. So we have by default validation working. So that is happening because of the element here. Now we have some different language showing up. We will be correcting that soon. This is from the component library as well, so we will correct it. Alright guys, so we are showing this details. It is coming from, if I go to form, here the form name should be employee form, and here if I scroll top you can see the content says detail. So if you remember, we passed scope, it's a create form, so I passed create here. So as we pass this here, we can use this in our employee form. So for that, what we need to do, we need to go here, and I'm going to remove the mounted for now, and I'm going to say props, and here we want to call a prop. So the value that you pass like this, you get using prop. So here simply you need to say scope, and it's a type string. Now as we using this, we can now call it. So what we do is go here instead of content and detail, what I'm going to say, I want to pass a colon here. Then I will say dollar, say form, something like that. Okay, so now let's see. So if I go back and recompile, and let's refresh the page, so you can see that it's create form. So our scope is coming from here, and then we are using it using prop, and then we are calling here, and the form is the text we are adding at the end. Now let's work with the Vuex so that we can store the data. Currently we have the validation working and stuff, but if we do save, it's not going to do anything. It's just alerting as we added alert here. So let's work with this. So if I go to the Vuex website, so here I'm on the Vuex page, you can go to this Vuex page. Link is in the description. The structure wise, it says we need to create a store directory in our project. There we need to provide an index.js where we will be exporting the store, and here we need to create a few files like action.js, mutations.js. So we need to do this, and we can also create modules. We'll see that later, but for now we're just going to create these. So let's go to the files here. Now what do we need to do? We need to create a folder in a JS folder next to the components. So here I just say folder, and I'm gonna call this folder store. Alright, so now inside this folder we need to create 2 files. First file we need to create as given in the website, index.js. After that we need to create another file which is going to be actions.js. We need another file with mutations.js. Now these are the files we need to create. We also have getters. It's not giving here, but we need to create these getters files. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create that file as well. So getters.js. Alright, so these 4 files. Now let's configure. We need to go in index.js, and here we need to work. So I'm going to make it a little big here. Now we need to say import view from view like this, Vuex as well. So we're gonna say Vuex from Vuex, just like that. Now here what we want to do, we want to say import. So we need to get all these files as well. So I'm going to say getters from, and it's going to be getters. Okay, we can copy and paste like that, and so here I say actions. And then we need mutations. So far so good. We can also call as. So for example, if I take the action here, and I'm gonna call it like this, say import all as actions. Okay, now to work with, we call the view Vuex, but we haven't told them use the Vuex. So for we simply say view dot use, and we pass Vuex. Alright, now this is going to tell that okay, use it, but we need to, as we are importing this file, we need to export these too. So here we say simply export constant, and it's going to be store constant. Okay, it's going to be new Vuex.store, and basically we need to pass an object here, and this object will have all the values. So here I'm gonna say if we need mutations, we need actions, we need getters. Now in case you want to use modules, you can call modules. It's going to be empty object for now. And also we need to pass state. Alright, it's going to have comma. So yeah, this is the structure for now. I'm going to save this. Now we define these values, but we need to use these values. So you can see that we have view, Vuex, we call all this. We need, but our application is in app.js. If you see here, we are defining it. So we need to bind it somehow with here. So what I do, I simply go here and I say here, import, and here we want to import the store. All right, and store from, it's going to be dot dash, and then it's going to be store directory, and then inside it we have the index. Okay, index.js. Now as we are importing it, we can pass it. So I simply pass it here in our app like this, comma. Okay, now we know that it is going to use the Vuex. We can close this file, and now we can work with Vuex. Okay, so for that, what we need to do, we first of all go to the employee form here. Here we have the form. So here I'm going to remove the alert so that this time we save the form, and I'm going to say here, okay, if this dot $refs, and I'm going to pass the value this form name. Okay, so this dot refs form name dot validate. So we can use the validation. We are getting the form name if we go up here. So we pass here reference form, and then we are getting that reference here, and then we are validating. This validating is from element here. If you search for validate, we have form methods. So this one is using validation. So yeah, here you can see that this refs form name, something that we are doing exactly like that is happening here. So we can use this. So simply going to copy this from here, go back to the code editor, I'm going to copy and paste here. Okay, so this is going to be like this. Now here, if you notice in here, we are checking if valid, then do something else, so we can copy that too. I'm going to paste here. Okay, so if valid, we need to process, and we need to process using Vuex. So for that, I'm going to delete this. I'm going to remove this. If valid, we say this dot $store. As we pass the store in app.js here, now we are using Vuex in our project, so we have the access to $store, and then we can go to .dispatch, and here we can say method, so save employee. All right, and then we need to pass the values with the form values. So if you remember, we passing the form values in this form, so we can pass that form here. So this dot form. So this dot form contains name, department, section, email, everything. So all are going to be passed here. And this is how we can process it. Now what we need to do, we need to go in actions.js, and here we need to import view first of all. And once you have view imported, we can work with the save employee method that we just mentioned here. So we are just dispatching an action here. So here we want to say first of all export again, and it's going to be a constant, and it's going to be save employee. and I want to call commit. Okay, so this is, you pass commit and then payload, and in a moment you will see how it works. So what exactly we are doing here is we need to pass it like this. Inside it, I want to use the package which is Axios, so I'm gonna call Axios. Alright, and I want to pass a URL, and I want to backtick, then I would say save employee, and then I say payload. We are passing payload, and then what we want to dot then it's going to take, and we will receive a response, and whatever response we get, we can use that response. So here I'm going to use the another feature of Element. So if I go here and search for notify, we get notifications. So you can give them notifications like this, success, warning. You can see the nice animation. So if I go back to text editor here, what I want to do, I want to say view dot prototype, and all this is available in documentation. You can go to the site and check there, notify. And here we need to pass an object with the values. So I'm going to say title. Sorry, it's not a string, it's going to be title. And then we need to pass, I want a success message here. Then we need to pass the message. And I say here, employee added successfully. And at last type, I want to refer it as a success. Okay, so this is gonna happen once we get the response, all right? And once we get the notification, we can set a set timeout. And here, after, let's say after 2 seconds, we will redirect the user. So I say window dot location dot href, and I want to pass here user to employee this URL. So user will be redirected there. Now this will do the job, but we also have another feature available in Element, that is that we can put loadings. So if I say here loader, or loading maybe, yeah, so the loading. So you can see we have nice animated loadings here. You can add these loadings in your project if you want to, and we are going to see that how we can use this loading. So we have code here, so you can see we can access to this dot loading. So let's do that. So I go back to the here, and what I want to do, I want to create a function here, function, and it is and I'm gonna call that display loader. All right, and here I'm gonna pass a loading text. Well, so loading text. All right, so by default we say loading. So it's a variable we are passing, and by default this is the value this is going to display. And here we want to pass, we want to say loader equals, now we don't have this variable, so let's create it outside here. So I say let loader, by default that is null, and then we are setting the value here. So we say view.prototype dot $loading, and here we pass an object inside it. Now this object will take few values, so we say lock, so that we lock the user from using, it's just kind of loading. During that time user won't be able to use anything. So here text, we can pass loading text, so whatever message we pass it's going to display. By default it's loading, so it's going to show that. Now we need spinner, so for that I want to pass element, icon, and loading. Alright, this is all in documentation, you can check on Element website. Now here I am going to pass background, and it's going to be RGBA, and I want to have transparent background, so 255, 255, 255, 0.85. Alright, so this is going to be the display loader. This is enough configuration. Also, we need to hide this loader, so I say function remove loader. So once we got the data, we don't want to show this loader anymore, so we say loader dot close. Alright, so you can see that we call this variable, we added the loading to this variable, and on that variable we are calling close. Now what we can do here when we are getting the data before executes, here we can pass display loader. I'm going to copy that and like this. So we are calling it here. Now we want to hide it, so we need to call the remove loader. So I copied the loader, remove loader, and I'm going to call it here. Okay, so loader goes away, we get notification, and loader goes away, and then we redirect user after 2 seconds. So we save the file, and I hope all the files are saved. Now we need to work with the route, but before that, let's see if this is working, then what we created so far, or we get some error. So let's go back to our application, and we need to recompile. Alright guys, let's run npm run dev. Okay, now let's go refresh the page, and we have an error. Let's see. Let's go back to app.js. Here we have the store. Let's change it to store and recompile again. Alright, it successfully went through. Now let's work with this. Now let's add an employee name, and let's add roger@gmail.com and hit save. So we get an error, unknown action save employee. Okay, so the name here is not correct, you can see that. So sorry about that. Be careful about this as well. So I'm just going to paste this. So this is the save employee, and if we go in here, we are calling the save employee. So yeah, the name should match. So we need to recompile it now. So here we also need to refresh. So do that. Now I'm going to pause here and hit save. We get the loading, we get 404, and 404 is totally fine because we don't have any route dealing with it currently. So you can see that we have the loading working, and our so far process is just fine. So let's work with the route so that this form saves actually. So if I go back here, we need to go in the web.php. So basically we go to save employee, you go actions. We are looking for this route that is not present, so I'm going to copy this. We go to web.php. Now here we need to create this route, and that's how it is going to be storing the user. So here I simply say route, and we want to use post this time, post method, and this is the route, save employee, and I want to pause here. Actually, we can copy this from top here, like that. The method is going to be store employee. All right. Now we don't have this method, so let's create it. So we go back to our files and we look for the controller, employee controller. Here, I'm going to create a function, public function. All right, and here in in this public function, we're gonna get requests. So we're gonna call it like this: request $request, so that we can receive the data. Now we have this included on top, so it's not gonna give any issue to us. Inside it, I'm gonna run a try and catch statement so that we face if any error, we can debug it easily. We need to use exception. Alright, $E, and if something goes wrong, I want to DD this and $E, so we have the whole detail. And we need to call the use exception on top, otherwise we're gonna face error. And this class is being used here. So inside it, what I want to do, I want to get the employee. So if I go to the models, we have employee class. So we are calling that class now. As we are calling this class, we need to use this class on top, otherwise again we will get the error of class not found. So it's going to be app /models /employee. Alright, so now we can use it. So we have employee here. We want to create a variable. It's going to be employee as well. Employee is equal to new employee. Here I say $employee. And now we want to save the data. So we have name, which is going to be equal to $request get, and the name we are getting. So just like that. We can pass this way, or you can pass directly request get. So we're just gonna copy and paste this here. And here I want to say department section, and then we have email. Alright, just copy paste this department, this one is section, and this one is email. So I copy and paste it there. Now here we say $employee save. So this is gonna save it to the database, and once it is saved, we can return here return response. And what do we want to return? We want to return JSON data, and it is going to be an array. And here we want to say status 200. That means everything went fine. We stored the record. And then message, and message going to be let's say employee saved successfully. Alright, so we can save this. So far so good, everything looks fine to me. Now let's see. So if I go here, employee form, and then we go to actions. Did I change anything there? So here, let's recompile. So I'm going to compile again, just in case if I did change anything. Okay, it's done. Refresh. Now this time we want to save it. So we say Roger, same department, marketing.com. Hit save, loading, and we have get method not allowed. Okay, I made a mistake here, so go back. Alright guys, so we need to make a post request. So I put .post here, and this becomes post request this time. Now we need to rerun the command to compile it. Alright, refresh the page. Now here, let's add the information again, .com, and save. Now we get this time post of 500 error. If I go to network and save employee, and we are inserting in employees table, and this is the value, binding data is there. Now there is the thing, we have the employee table here, It's better to have employees instead of employee table, because it's going to be data of multiple users. But in this case, I'm not going to change the name of this table. I'm going to tell you a way that you can define this name in your model so that you'll still be able to save in this. So for that, what we do, we go back in our model. So here I go model employee, and here we need to say public $table. So $table equals, as it is employee, so we mentioned this employee table. So this time it is going to run and look for this table instead of employees. So now if I go back and refresh, and here we need to pass the data. Let's add Roger and hit save. Go back there. Now you can see this network. This time it's setting into employee. Alright guys, there is this issue that the spellings are not right here, which is causing all the issue. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to run the migration again in that case. And for that, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go into migrations, and here we have create employee table. We can delete this from here, otherwise we won't be able to run the migration again. So if I go to employees table, we can go into the operations, and we can simply say delete table. So it is going to delete this table. Alright, now we don't have that table anymore. And for now, I'm going to go back to text editor. Here we need to go back to the database migration, and we have the employee table, and here we can change it to employee, and we can correct it as well, so employees. And I'm gonna change this in the model as well. So I go back to employee model, and there we can pass the employees. All right, now one thing that I deleted this migration. This is not a best practice to do when you are working with a large project, because if we might have data in it, so you can't do it. We'll see what can be done about it, but for now, to easy fix it was to remove the migration and run again. So simply just gonna say here PHP artisan migrate, and it creates the employee table this time. So refresh, and we have employees. Now we can try now for a query. So here if I go back and refresh, and we go say Roger and .com, save, you can see success message, employee saved. Then we redirected user to employees page after set timeout. So if you remember, we added that. And here in actions, so yeah, to after loader we have the redirect, and that's employees. If we go in database, we currently just added one, so we can add more employees here. Now I showed you that you can run migration by deleting from here, and then you can recreate folder table using running migration again. But what if you want to change the name of the table without deleting or rerunning the same migration? So now let's see that. So I say PHP artisan make migration, change the employee underscore table underscore name. All right, we have the migration up. Now let's go to this file. We need to go in database here. We have the change employee name, employee table name. Now here, what do we need to do? We need to say schema, and here I want to say rename, and inside it we want to pass the current name, so it's employee, and we want to change it to, I want to change it to employee. Okay, now it is good practice to have more as employees, because we're gonna have multiple employee data there. But I just want to show you, or what I do is that I say employees underscore data. All right, that's going to be better. And we also want to have this in here in case something goes wrong. Return this to revert it. So just gonna cut this, paste here, comma, and remove this. Run the migration. PHP artisan migrate, and now if we go back here and refresh, we have the employees the table name changed, and you can see the data is still there. So this is how you change it in. So I showed you just to make sure that if you have data and you want to change how you can do it. Now as we change the name here, and if you remember in the model I have the name of the table set up, so we need to update there as well. So it's employees underscore data, otherwise next time we save the data it's not going to save. Alright guys, now let's fix one more thing, that this language should not be like this. We need to add it. So for the package, if I go here and if you see internationalization here, this, so I'm just going to copy this, go back to the code editor in our app.js here, and above right here I'm going to paste these. Alright, so it's now going to be everything in, and there are not going to be any weird characters. So for that we need to of course run npm run dev. So we need to wait till it completes. Alright, I refresh the page. You can see now it says back, so yeah, language is fine. Now it's time we work with the employees page. So if I go here to employees, we're currently getting 404. We need to display the employee list. So let's work with that. So first of all, I want to create the route so that we have a page for it. So I go to web.php. Here we want to add route get, and it's going to be employees. Now we need to pass the controller. So let me copy and paste from here. And let me have it in the middle. So we can paste it like that. Okay. Now here the function I'm going to use is going to be index. Save that. Now what I do, I close these files. We have so many files open right now. So yeah, I'm in the employee controller. So here we can add the function. So let's do that now. All right. It's a good practice to add the comments. So I always try to add the comment. Function gets data of employees. All right. Now here's a public function, and we want it is going to be index, and here we want to get the view. So I'm going to say view, and it's going to return view, and I want to have the employee folder, and inside index. So if you remember, we created the employee folder in view directory. So if I go down here, we have employee folder and their form.blade. So here we're going to create another file. It's going to be index.blade.php. Now anything we have in form.blade we can copy from there and put in index to save time, because we are extending the same layout, and the content here we're going to make the changes. Now we don't need this form, employee form component. We need to create a separate one. So I'm going to create a component in the employee directory. So we created the employee form. Now we can create here employee list.view. All right. Now I go in employee form, and I take everything from here and put in employee list. For now we will be changing it, and here we need to call this, but before that we need to register it. So we go to app.js, and here I'm just gonna copy this, paste here. It's the employee list, so it's gonna be want to call it like this. So I can copy this too, and here it's gonna be list. All right. So if the spellings are right, so yeah, it should be working. So we can go index, and here we can put employee list component. All right, so this component should work. Now here in employee list we have form. We don't need this form. We can remove this form from here. We also don't need page header, so we can remove that. Here I'm going to say employee data. All right, and after that I want to add a button, so L button. Now here we need to pass type. I want to pass success here, and I want to have it at the right side, so I want to pass a class float right, and also at click we want to run a function. So okay, inside it I'm gonna say add employee. Alright, so we'll be saving the employee from here. So for now I'm just gonna leave this for now, and here in the lower div we want to use the table. So for that, if I go back to the element website, we can look for table, and we have this one. So I'm going to expand it, and this one has search as well as it looks nice. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get the code. So element table, go back there, and I'm going to paste here, just like that. So now we need to indent it a little bit. Okay, now a lot of things we need to remove because we don't need. I'm going to remove this click for now. We will add it later. Now here we have this table filter, things happening. We don't want this, so I'm going to remove it for now. So we simply getting the table data. So we need to set a variable, and we need to put the values in this variable. So we will be doing that. Now for the styling, I want to give this table a border, and for passing border we simply pass it true. Alright, and also we can set height here, and I want to give it a height of 500. Okay, now we have the columns. I'm going to remove these actually, and yeah, this too. So yeah, so we have table, and now let's create the element column. So we're gonna say table column, and like this, and here we need to run a loop. So it's gonna be v4, and we want to say column in column, and it's basically table column. So column and table columns, and when we run the v4 we need to pass a key. So I'm going to pass a key here, which is going to be either index or column value. So I pass column dot label. Alright, now we can pass more values here, so let's do that. We say label, and we can say column dot label. Same way we need to pass prop, and here column dot prop. So So we will be setting the value of table column, and whatever value we will be providing, that is going to pass here. In a moment you will see how it works, so it might be confusing for now, but stay with me, you will get the understanding. So I'm just gonna add more. So we need to pass here a column key. All right, and that's going to be column dot prop. Now here I want to have width to the column, so whatever width we pass, so we say column dot width. Also we need to have the sortable, so sortable, and it's going to be column dot sortable. Okay, so for example, we element table expects sortable as false or true. So we are going to create an object which is going to contain the value inside the column, and we will pass either true or false. So that will come here, and this column will generate accordingly. So after sortable, we can pass a line. All right, and we say here column dot line. Then we have header, and this is all in documentation. We can check in the website, and also column dot line. So this is ending here. That's totally fine. Now to display it, we need to set the columns. So we currently don't have the columns, so it's not going to work. So for that, what we need to do, we need to go so scroll down here, we have data. Inside we can set the columns. So here, just next to the form, I'm going to put comma, and here in methods I need to make it empty because on this page we are not using it. Here we want to set the columns that we are looping through. So we are looping through these columns. I copy this and we can paste it here. All right, and here we need to pass an array, and this is going to be the header mainly, so we need to pass some static values here. So let's see. So we pass property prop, and it's going to be name for the first field. Then we have label, and we want to pass label as name. Then we have another value which is width. So these this is what it is now. So you can see that these are the values we provided here. Now these are values we are setting here. So it is going to loop through. All right, now here after width we say sort table. I want to pass as true. So it's going to sort everything. It's going to give us a sign for sorting. Then we need hidden true. We need a line true, and at last we need fixed true. More of a styling options for the table in element UI, so you can check the documentation. Now this is the going to generate name. We need more fields here, so I'm going to add here the second field. We have department, and here we're going to say department. For now I'm going to leave sortable to false for others and for true for the first. And here after that we have section, and then here we go to section sortable false. At last we have email, and we pass here email, and again sortable we don't need for this as well, so false. Alright, so this is what it is. It is going to loop through, it is going to display here, and yeah, that's going to work. So this is going to generate the header. So if I go back to the site here, we have the date, name, and search. This is the header. This is going to be generated from here, And the content, for example, Tom, John, this kind of content, this is going to generate from the table data. So we have to set value for table data to make it work. All right, let's see what happens now if I go here. We say npm run dev. Okay, go back. Now let's go for our app here. Employees. We have here, you can see add employee data. Table is not styled properly, so let's look into it. Otherwise, we have a few errors as well. So yeah, we don't have the table data set. We need to set these values so to make it work. And fail to prop line. Let's correct these. So here, this align property need to be center, left, right. I mistakenly added true there. Sorry about that. So, it's going to be center. So that whatever content is going to display should be centered. So we need to pass that. Let's recompile to see if it's done. Now go back here, refresh. And here we have the data table is not set. For the width, it's not shrink properly. So if I go back here, I added the width property. Actually, we wanted to add min width, so that minimum width going to be 40. So 40 is quite less. I'm going to add 100 in that case for all of these. So though this is not going to be the min, not going to be the width, it's going to be the min width. So here we have width, we can say min width, and if we are changing it here, in that case we need to change it here as well. So here instead of width, it's going to be min width. All right, so min width and plus min width here. Save this, recompile, and now refresh, and all is working just fine. Now if I go back to the component here, and if we see the table, like here data is displaying, in the code, if you notice, you will see that there is table data, and we have an array of objects. So this is the data. So if we have Tom, John, Morgan, so if I go up, Tom, John, Morgan, so you can see that. So we need to set this variable, and currently we are getting the error as well for this, and that table data is not set as we already passing it here, but we haven't got it. So let's work on this one. So what we need to do, we need to go into the index.js. So we go, I don't have it open currently, so let's go back there, index.js. And if you remember, we created the state here. So what we can do, we can call that variable here. So we say table data, and we set this variable by default equal to empty array. All right, so we need to set the values inside it. So for that, what we do, we simply go inside getters, and inside getters we need to get the values. Getters basically are responsible for getting the values. So whenever you want to get any state value, the way we just assign here, we need to use getter. So for that, let's do this, export default, and here we say table data, and what we want to have the access of state, and here we simply return state dot table data. So you can see that we are not doing anything else, we just getting this state dot table data and just returning it. All right, now when we're returning it, we need to make sure there should be some value inside it, because currently it is empty. So for that, to have the value there, we need to go into actions.js, and here we need to create a function. That function we are going to run to get the data. All right, so let's do that. So we need to get the data. For that, what we do, we go employee list page here. So on page refresh will be by default should have the data. So for that, we need to run a function just after refresh. So here I'm going to run the mounted, and inside mounted we are going to call for the data. So here what I do, I'm gonna first add the loading. So we say here constant, and it's going to be a loading so that we can hide the loading as well. So if you remember, we added the loading before. Loading, I think it's in action, so yeah, it's here. So we can copy the options from here and go back here and paste this inside here. So here it should be curly brackets inside it, and then we need to pass the values. Alright, so it's gonna get the data. Now we know. So I simply say here loading, because we are not calling for functions. It's text going to come from here. After once the loading is there, what we want to do, we want to have a dispatch. So we say this $store and then dispatch. Alright, so we call an action method, and as I said, we need to get the employees, so it's going to be employees, get employees, or maybe get employees data. And once we have the data, after that we can say loading dot close. Alright, so the constant we created above, we can close it here. Now currently we don't have this get employee data, so we go to actions, and here now this action going to have commit, so we need to pass that, and then the payload, and I want to do it this way. All looks fine. Alright, so what we need to do inside it, I say axios, and then dot get, and here we need to pass the get employee data. So we don't have it currently, but we will be having it soon. So payload, and dot, when we receive the response, what we want to do then. So here and then, let me have it down here, and then we say response, and we can set the response. So we need to call mutation. So for that we say commit, and here after that we want to say set table data. Alright, so after all we need to show this data to table, so here we're gonna say that, so response dot data. So I'm getting this red here, and we need to add the equal sign just like above here, otherwise it's not gonna work. Now it's saved. Now we don't have this URL, so we need to go there. So let's create the route. So I go here, and here we're gonna create a route, and it's gonna be get route, and we want to pass the URL. We can remove the slash, and then after comma we need to pass. I'm gonna pass the same. Now the method is going to be get employee data. Alright, simple enough. Now we don't have this method, so let's get back to the controller, and here we say getting all employees for list page. Alright, public function get employee data, and here try and then catch exception $E, and here we want a DD in case we face an issue, and exception spelling should be correct. Here inside try statement, we just need to run a query. I'm going to say employee all. So this is going to return it, and I'm going to return it straight away. So this is going to return all the employees, and we are returning the employees straight away. All right. So now we need to, if I go back here, so we have here a call to action. So this goes to action.js. We go there. Here we say, all right, get the data. We get the data. Then we say go to mutation. There should be a set table data, and we are also passing the data. So currently we don't have it. So go into mutation.js. In here we want to say export default. All right, and here we want to call that method. So set table data. All right, and here what we are receiving, we are getting state and payload. Table data. So you can see that first is this and second is this. So this response is coming through table data here. So here, what we want to do, we want to say state dot table data equals table data. Now don't get confused here. We are passing the data response that we received here to this mutation. Inside mutation, we are calling state.tableData, and whatever response we got, we are putting that response inside it. And if you remember, we have state.tableData empty initially, so here we are adding the value to it. So it should be fine. We should have some data inside it. All right, so let's see if it works. So I'm gonna compile the code, and then we see. Okay, I made a mistake. Action.js. Go back there. Okay, it included this. We don't need it. Save it and recompile. Okay, all good. Now refresh the page, and we still don't have data. Alright guys, my bad. So what exactly happened is we have the data set, but we are not calling the data. So let's see what exactly happened. So if I go to employee list, when the page refreshes, it calls this. So it calls for dispatch this action. So action.js calls for this, and then whatever response comes, it goes inside the mutation set table data. In mutation, we are setting the data to state table data. Now in index.js, that we have that state table data that is getting updated. Now this is setting the data. So table data has now data, but inside employee list, we are not receiving it in any variable. So to receive it, what do we need to do? We need to use the getters. So on top, what I say here, I say import. We need to import the map getters. So we are getting the data from getter. So we need to call it. So Vuex. So map getter from actually. Okay. And here, what we can do. After this here, I'm gonna call computed method. So I'm gonna say computed, and in computed we want to map the getters. So here I'm gonna put comma dot map getters, and here we pass an array, and inside array we define the getter. So we have table data, and this table data will get data from table data. So this is not an array, it should be an object, and we need to pass it inside it like this. And this this. Okay, now we need to make it like this. Okay, now let's update and the changes. So I run this npm run dev. So now we should have the table data. So refresh the page and we have it. So you can see Roger, and we have the section, department, and detail here. Now as we want to work with the complete CRUD, we should have edit and delete button that we don't have right now. So for that I go back to text editor. In our employee list view, I'm gonna scroll up and we have this element ending here. So here I'm gonna add another element. So it's gonna be element, table, and column. And I want a line right. Alright. And I want to end this like that. And inside it, we want to create a template. And inside the template, I want to, first I'm going to say here slot. And this is the settings we need to pass as it is in the element IO. So slot dot scope equals scope. All right. Then we want the element input. I want to add a search here, so it's going to be vModel. And in vModel, I want to say search. Currently, we don't have this search, so we need to add it. Size is going to be mini. All right, and we also want a placeholder. And this placeholder is going to be type search here. Okay. Now we don't have this search, so we need to put this next to the basically here. So I just put here search, set it to null by default. Go back here. Now we also need another template. Inside it we want two buttons. So here in VL button, and the first button is going to be size mini, of course. We want small buttons. Then type, that's a success. And then add click. We will be adding a function here. For now I'm gonna leave it empty, and the L button. Or what I do is leave it for now. Okay, here inside it we can say edit, and I'm gonna copy this and paste here. This is going to be delete. We can pause here danger. Alright, so let's see if it works. So if we go back here and we simply update it. Alright, go back, refresh. So we have delete and edit buttons. Okay. Now I want this button to be at the right side. So for that we have a class added here, float right. So we can add CSS in Vue.js. So at the bottom I simply gonna say here style. And here for the class, I simply say float right, and this should fix it. And refresh. Yeah, so button is there. That's looking better. I forgot to add the click on this button. So if I click here, it's not doing anything. So let's add it. So we go to our web.php. We have add employee route for adding a new employee. Back in employee list, When I scroll top, the button is here. So here we can simply put a anchor tag here and paste the /this link and wrap this with. So it should go to there without any issue. Save that, and now we update it npm run dev and refresh the page. Now we click add, it goes here, and click back, it goes back to the page. Alright guys, now let's work with the edit functionality. So what I do, first of all, I want to add an employee so that we have at least some data. So I say menu department and we save the employee. Now it goes here, redirects here. Now we have 2 employees here. Great. Now I need to work on edit. So if I go back to text editor, here in the employee list page, we have these buttons. So we need to modify these buttons a bit. So what I'm gonna do, I'll bring it here. All right. So this is the edit button, and this is delete button. All right. So in edit button, I'm gonna say at click. You want to run a function, all right, and it's gonna be edit employee function, and what I want to get, they're going to be scope dot $index and also scope dot row. All right, now we don't have this function right now, so let's make this work. So we go here down in the methods we need to look for, and here we create this function. And here we are getting index and row, right? Now what I want to do, I want to say console.log, and we simply say row. So when we click on any of this, we should get the row data so that we can select that particular employee. So if I go back here, that's what we are doing, console logging row. Now let's npm run dev. Alright, this is complete. Now refresh here. Let's see if we are getting the data. So if I go here and okay, I made a mistake there, so sorry about that. Let's go back to see what's happening. So okay, it is not closing, so we need to make sure that it closes. Actually, I need to cut it from here and put it here like this, and this goes away. Now we regenerate it, so let's compile it again. npm run dev. Now here, refresh. Now if I click here, we get. Alright guys, so when we click edit, it is giving us error. So if I go to component element here, we have the template, slot header, slot scope in the same way here, and then we can use scope $index and scope row like this. So in our code, if we go, we have these values here, but I don't have the slot scope here. So what we do, we simply it was this one, so I'm just gonna copy the code from here. So I'm just gonna copy this and just gonna replace this template top with that one. All right, so we have the scope there. Now also if I go back, I also change the above. Now what I'm gonna do, I'm going to regenerate it. So here this time, npm run dev. Now go back here. All right, now refresh the page. Now if this time I hit it, I'm gonna refresh again. Didn't work. Sorry about that, I didn't save it. You can see on top. So I save this and let's update it. Compile again. All done. Let's go back, refresh, edit. Now we have data, so you can see that we can get all the data. So here currently we need the ID of this particular employee. So here the ID is 1. So if I click here on menu, I should get the ID 2. So you can see that. Alright, so what we need here, basically we need to use this ID inside our function. So let's go back here. So here we can access the ID using row.id. Alright, so what do we need to do? We need to basically pass this ID, and so when we click the edit function, we simply say here that window dot location dot href. So we want to send the user to a URL, and it's going to be edit employee. Now here we will pass the ID, so it's going to be row.id, and then string again, and it's going to be edit. Alright, so user will be redirected to this page. Currently we don't have this page, so we're gonna get 404 error, so let's create it. So we need to go into the web.php, so go there. Okay, I have it open here. So here I'm going to write another route, and it's going to be get route, and we want is edit dash employee, and we pass the ID and then edit. So it's going to be edit like that. For the controller, I'm just going to copy and paste this here to save time. Alright, and here we want to say edit. Alright, so it's going to be edit. Now we need to go to the controller, so it's going to be employee controller. Here I'm going to say, now we can pass single command here, edit page. Simply we want to have public function edit, and here we're getting $ID, and inside this function we are going to return $data array, and this data array will have the value this time. So we have scope. So previously we passed scope create, this time we pass scope edit, and also we are going to pass ID this time. So it's going to be ID, and we have the ID. Now we want to return view. So we're going to create a page where we want to display, but we already have the create page. So the form where we create the employee. So if I click here, I will be using the same form for updating the employee. So for that we can simply say here we have employee directory and their form blade, and we want to pass with data, and based on this data we will tell Laravel that we want to update or create, because here we are saying edit, so it is gonna update, and if it is create, as we have create passed here, so this is for create. Alright, now we are getting here some error. Okay, it's equal to, it should be arrow. That should be fine. Alright, now let's go there. Now what we need to do, we need to check in the we need to go into employee list. Here currently we are checking for scope only, but now if you remember we passed the ID as well, so we need to check for ID too. So here we say ID, and that's going to be number. Okay, just like that. So if I go back to this page form, so I go back here, form.blade, we are passing scope and ID. If ID is not set, ID is passing as 0. So if I go here, we are checking for scope and ID, and then we can use this. Alright guys, so we need to work with employee form. So I added the prop check here in the employee list. So if you see, the employee form is this and employee list is this. So we need to use this same form for update as well. So we need to check for ID in employee form.view file. So here it's going to be like this. Alright, so it should be fine now. So if I go to form.blade, we are calling employee form, which is the employee form view file, and there we are getting these. Now here what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a computed, and inside it we want to check if this dot scope. So we are checking that if it is edit, then we want to do something. And here what we want to do, we want to simply xeos dot get and backtick. Inside it I would say fetch employee data, and here I'm going to pass the dollar and then the ID. So it's going to be this dot ID. As we are getting the props ID coming here, we can access the ID. So I just open it. Now here, after that we will be getting the response. So we say then, and whatever response we get, what we need to do with it. So here, once we get the response, we want to say this dot dollar set, and we want to set the form value. So we said this comma form, okay, and whatever we are getting. So it's going to be comma response dot data. So if you see here, we have form where we have name, department, section, email. So whatever value we get in response, we are setting to the same form. Alright, so it's going to set it that way. So this is how you set the values. So now this part is done. Let's work with this route, because we need to go to this route to get the data, and I need to put here like this. So alright, let's go back and copy this, go to the web.php, here another route get, and here comma, and pass the same, copy and paste. Now for the function, this time we're gonna say get employee data by ID. Alright, so this employee data by ID we are getting, and I forgot to add the ID here, so let's add it. It's gonna be ID. Okay, now let's add this function. So we go to get employee by ID, so we need to go in controller. So employee controller, here we say get employee single employee data by ID. So it's going to be public function, and I want to say here that alright, we need to call the employee model, and we say find, we pass $ID. Now as we're using $ID, we can we need it here as well. Now here, simply what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna say $employee employee data. Now here I want to return, it's going to be response, and in JSON format, so we need to put it like this. It's going to be array, and in array we want to pass status to be 200, and then we want to pass data. Now this data is going to be the employee data. Okay, so this is going to basically return the data that we can use that data. So what I do we simply go to the employee form.view. Here we have the method, and here in the same form method we need to make a few changes. So currently what we need to do here is we have here reference that is checking from the form and then validating, and then it is dispatching save employee, but we want to check if it is added. So what we can do, we can put a condition inside it. So we can simply say like this: if this dot scope equals to create. Alright, so if we are creating an employee, then we want to dispatch save employee function from actions.js. So we pass it like this. Now, other than this, there's going to be only one condition, which is update. So we want to copy this again, paste here. This time it is going to be update employee. Okay. Now in case of update employee, we need to pass the ID as well. So I'm going to create an object here. So this form, I'm going to remove it. It's going to be an object, put it here, and this object is going to have ID, which is going to be this.id, and then it's going to have form, which is going to be this.form. Alright, these two values we're going to pass, and it should work fine. So it's going to dispatch to update employee, and we in actions.js we need to now work and create this method. So let's go there, update employee, actions.js. So I have this function save employee. I copied this and make changes in this one. So here, alright, so we first of all change its name to update employee. We have commit payload. Now this time in payload we are getting the object, so be careful about that. Here I'm gonna change the URL to update. We can pass the display loader message. So if you remember, we call the display loader here, and by default it is gonna show loading. If we pass the message, it will show that message. So we can pass a message here. So I say here update employee, and here update employee we need to pass the ID, so $, and there is a payload.id. So if I go back to the employee form, this is the payload this time. So we are passing ID and form. So if there I say payload.id, that is referring to this ID. So now this ID is we are passing here, and payload.form we pass here. Alright, and then we get the response. We can say employee updated successfully. Alright, and yeah, we will get the response from there as well. So we can get the response and put that message here. We see that, but for now it's just fine. So it is going to go to this route this time, and we don't have this route, so let's work with that. So we need to create another route, web.php. Here I'm going to create a route. It is going to be put, and I forgot that in here, so we need to make it put. Alright, so for update we use put route, and here I'm going to put the route. So it's going to be update employee /ID. Okay, now for the controller, again going to copy this, and this time method is going to be update method. So update. Okay, rest all looks good. Yeah. So let's go to the controller this time, and the employee controller. Now here we say public. First look at the comment func for updating each employee. So here we simply say public function update, and this update function will receive request. So $request, comma $ID, so that this is how it's be able to update. So I use the try statement again. So if in case something goes wrong, we get the error. Catch exception $E, and I want to display the error, so I just DD here. So we get all the data here. Inside try, what I do is a new employee, just like the way we did it in the create. If you remember, if I scroll up here, we use the here and for create, the similar way we are going to do here. I'm going to say find $ID. So this time it is we are just finding the single employee. So here we say the $employee equals to this. Now I'm going to go up and I'm going to get all this data to save time, and here I'm going to paste this just below it. So it's just going to update all these fields. Instead of save, we say update, and here we're going to say updated successfully. We don't need new in this case, so it's just going to be employee and then find $ID. So it's gonna work now. So yeah, so let's see if it works. We first compile npm run dev. Let's see if there is any error. I compile successful. So I go back, refresh, and here we have computed in-app. So this error we are getting from here. Actually, we need to use mounted instead of computed, so that's the reason it was causing this issue. So now it should be fine. So we need to recompile it, of course, and after that, so we go here, refresh the page, that error is no longer there. So if I go back, refresh, edit, it's not working as expected. So what I do is simply go here. So if it is edit, we are fetching the data. So here we're getting the response. I need to check what response we are getting. So here we say console.log, and I pass the response.data there. And now we need to run the compile it again. So let's do that. So compile, just complete here. Now go back here and I refresh again one more time. Now I click here and we get status and then data, and then we have the values. So we need to pass here in that case another data so that we can have the values inside it, because it is inside data object. So now it should be fine afterwards. So I remove this console log now and save this. Now we need to recompile it, so let's do that. And compile complete, so go back, now refresh, and now I added Roger, so I have the values coming in the field as expected. So you can see if I go back here, now menu, I added here, so we have the values coming up here. So let's add it user. So I go in here, Roger, I add 1, and I change email to Roger, and I hit save. We get the employee updated successfully. We go back here, we get the new email and the new name. So yeah, updation is working now. So we can change the department and section as well. Let's add department as marketing and section as South Wing. All right, and then save, updated. Now repeat it. So we have it working. Alright guys, so we are successfully able to update the data. We can work on delete functionality, but before that I want to show you if you want to create a view page. So the main point is I want to do it on the same page. So we have the edit page and create page working on from the same file, and the same file will be responsible for the view page as well. So let's do that. What we need to do here, first of all, I go to the employee list view, which is the this employee list view. Here we have these buttons, so I'm going to add another button here. So I'm just going to copy this button and I'm going to paste another button on top, and I'm going to call it show. And here at click we want to say show employee, and it will have the scope, index, and everything like that. Here type info, so that we have a bit of a blue color there. Alright, so we don't have this function currently, so let's go and make this function. So scroll down in methods. Here we need to add this method, and here just like above we are getting the index and row. So I can just copy this and paste here, and what we need to do here, we simply redirect the user. So window dot location dot href is going to be equal to, and I want to send the user to show employee, and here we need to pass an ID. All right, so that user will be, so basically we need to pass the ID outside here, row and dot ID. Okay, so this is going to send the user to this page, but we don't have this route currently, so let's save this. I go back to the web.php and here create another route. So this route is going to be responsible for a show page. So here it is going to be get route, and here we want to pass. I need to copy that, so go back there, and this show employee, and then web.php show employee, and then we're passing ID. All right. For the controller, I copy the code from above and paste here. Now here, for the method, I'm going to add show method. So this is going to be responsible. And now I need to go to controller. And here we need to create a function responsible for show page. All right. And here we say public function show. We are getting the ID here, if you remember. And so what we can do here, basically we need to say $data, and it's an array. The same way that we used previously, we need to define scope, as well as we need to tell the ID. So scope going to be this time show, and for the ID we are going to pass the ID $ID. Alright, so we have the data now like this. Now we need to return to the same view that we are using for create and update. So we are using this. So we're just going to copy this from here and going to paste here. So you will see that the same page is going to handle the show method as well. So let's see that. What we do basically, we go to the we compile it and see how it works. npm run dev, and it should compile successfully. Refresh. We have show method here, and it's not displaying correctly, so let's correct that first. So I go back to here and top. I need to increase the width of this, so I say min width, and I'm gonna pause here 100. And it should fix it. Let's see if it works. So yeah, compile again. Successful. Refresh. Okay, we see that actually. Well, what we do here now, I'm going to click on show. So we go to the new page, but we don't have values. Okay, so for this, what we need to do, we need to go back to the function in the employee list here. So here when we are not getting the data, and that's why we aren't there. If you notice, the show form is there, so our scope is going, to this page, but the data is not going. So for that, what we need to do, we need to go into the employee form, and here if I scroll down, in mounted function we are checking if this.scope is edit. So here we also put a if edit or if it is show. All right, so we want to fetch employee data. So now it should be getting the data. So I run the and refresh the page, and you can see this time we have the data. Now we have data, but it's editable, so we want to make sure that user won't be able to edit it. So for that, what we need to do, we go back to actually we need to work on the same file, and here, so the first I want to remove the save button here if it is a show page. So here I'm simply going to say I'm gonna pass here the if condition, so it's gonna be if only then display the save button. So let's compile again. It should remove the button. Compile successful, refresh, so we see the button is no longer there. Now if I go to edit page, button will be there, so it's not available on show page only. Alright, so now we need to make these fields only read only. So for that, go back to the same file. Here what we need to do, we need to create a computed property. So here basically we don't have any computed created, so here I say computed, and in computed I'm going to pass so comma, and inside it what we're going to say, we're going to say read only field. It is going to check if it is the scope, and then it is going to decide if the field is going to be read only or not. So we say this dot scope, if it is equal to show, and then it is going to be, this is the ternary operator we're using here, so it's going to be true, otherwise it's going to be false. Okay, so now we can call this function inside these input fields. So here we have input field. Here I'm going to say colon and then read only equals to, and inside here we call that function. Okay, so this is going to check if it is true or false, and it is going to behave accordingly. So now I'm going to put it in each input. So here, in here too, in section we also need to add it here, in email we also need to add it here. So if it is show, it is going to make it disable because it is going to get true. Alright, so hope you got the understanding. So what I do, I recompile it simply and refresh the page. Now if I click here, it is not allowing me to edit it, you can see there. Okay, now if I go to edit page, and there I can click and edit without an issue. So yeah, that's how we create the show page. Now let's correct the design for these buttons. So for correcting the design, we simply go here. The min width I had 100, I'm going to change it to 150 this time, and let's recompile it to see if it works. And refresh, and it looks a lot better than previous. So alright, now we need to work further. So our show and edit is working just fine, and if I go to add employee, it's working fine as well. Alright guys, let's delete the records. What I'm going to do, I'm going to simply go into the file where we have the delete button. So our delete button is in employee list. Here we have our delete button. So here we don't have any function for it, so let's add the function. So I say add, and I'm going to copy this complete line here. So to save time, I'm going to call it delete employee. Okay, so we have the access to index and row. Now we don't have this function, so create it. So we go down here in methods, and here I put comma and put the function, and it is going to be quite it's same. So index and row we passing here like that. Now here we need to have the confirmation from user. Then are you sure you want to delete? So if I go back here, and if I say confirm, So we have options to ask for confirmation, like here you can see it asks for confirmation. So we have okay, so data deleted, and these kind of things. So what I'm gonna do, we're gonna add that. So for this, I want this confirmation. So user click OK, delete complete. So we expand this, and here we have this code. So I just copy this code, and we want to put this code right here, and we need to make it better a little bit so that it can be readable. So indent it a little bit. Okay, so far so good. So user will be asked this. This will be permanently deleted. So I change this message to, are you sure you want to delete this employee? And it's a warning, it's okay, and here is the success message. So in this, then what we want to do before this, if user click OK, we want to run the this.dispatch. Okay, and we want to run delete employee action, so that we can delete the employee. And here I'm going to pass an object. This object will take the ID, and we basically going to pass row.id, so that we delete a particular employee. Now once the employee is deleted, we will get the data. So for that, I'm going to call the this.dispatch. So we previously added a function to, and I made a mistake here. We need to pass store.dispatch, and previously we added a function get employees. So it is going to get us the data, and this store we need to pass here the same way. All right. So this store dispatch, and it's going to go there, and it's going to refetch the data, and we will get the message that delete complete. All right. So we don't have this currently, so let's do that. So for this, we need to go into the action.js, and here I'm just going to copy this method. So update employee. I'm going to paste this here, change it to delete employee. We get the same payload. Message going to be deleting employee, and URL we need to change it to delete. And we don't have the payload form this time, so we can remove that. All right, and here employee deleted successfully. And remove loader, we are not going to redirect the user, so I can remove this. All right, and we are going to get the message from the backend, so we going to pass that here. So it's going to be response.data.message. Okay, so now we need to create this route, and I'll show you where this method comes from in a moment. So we go to, and here this method going to be delete. Now let's go, I'm going to copy this. Now we go to web.php. Here we say route, and it's going to be delete route. We pass here. Now we're getting the ID, so we pass the ID here. I'm going to copy and paste the controller like that, and here we want to pass the method destroy. Okay, so this is the method. So let's go to the controller and create that method. So here, function responsible for deleting employees. All right, so here public function destroy. We are getting the ID here. That ID we're gonna use. We call the employee model. We say find where the ID, and we get $employee. And what do we want to do? We want to delete simply. So we can say $employee, and we we say delete. Now we use the try and catch in every function, so let's do that here as well. So that if something goes wrong, we get the idea what is happening. So here catch, exception, $E, here DD $E, in case something goes wrong. And I'm going to put this statement and inside this try statement. All right. Now here we want to pass the response, so it's going to be like that. So let's add the response here. Return response, and it's going to be JSON response, and we're passing an array, and it's going to be status. Status going to be 200, and here message. And this message is the one we will be displaying. So we say employee deleted successfully. So this is the response we are passing, and semicolon here. And if we go back here in the dispatch action.js, here we are getting that message. So response data message. So that message is coming right from here, this message. All right, so it should be working. Let's see if we have it working or not. So what do? We recompile, go back to the application, and here. Now I'm gonna refresh here, and I'm gonna add one employee. So I say here Tom, and some department, some section, and then some email.com, save. Employee added successfully. Now here we have 3 employees, so I'm gonna delete Manu. So I simply hit delete. Are you sure you want to delete? Okay. Delete complete, delete employee, and deleting employee. And we have unknown action get employees. Okay, so refresh. It's not even deleting, so let's see. So I retry to delete one, so I delete here. Okay. And if I go to network in here, we see, so we say employee fine. So here, that's a mistake here. So we need to correct that. So we are basically not gonna find, we're gonna find. And if we get the employee, then we get employee, we delete employee and return the response. All right, so refresh the page. And if I delete now, okay. And delete complete, employee deleted successfully. And yeah, employee deleted successfully. And then if I refresh, yeah, the record is gone, but the list is not updating. All right, guys. So the get employees, I mistakenly, it's actually the get employee data. So we need to pass this. So if I go back here and I pass this get employee data, this time it should work. So we need to recompile it. So let's do that. Okay, now refresh the page. Now I delete Tom. Okay, you can see that list updated as well. Now I'm not seeing the loading, so for that I go here in display loader where we're deleting the employee. So here I'm gonna say set timeout, and basically we're gonna delete after some time. So here I'm gonna put a delay of 1 second, and after that we're gonna remove the loader and stuff. So we're gonna put in here. So display loader will come. It is gonna wait for 1 second and then gonna delete. So let's recompile it and see if it does the job. So refresh now. So we have only one record here. I deleted. Okay. We have there was loading working as well. So yeah. So we don't need this delay in that case. I just wanted to see that if it is working or not. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna copy this out and I'm gonna put it here. All right, so now it's gonna delay and delete straight away. Now if I go to employee list here, so it's still the employee data. So what I do, recompile and check if it worked. Refresh and delete. Yeah, it works now. So yeah, it's working just fine. Alright guys, our CRUD is complete. Now I need to work with the search. So for that, I'm going to go into the code editor again. Here, what we need to do, we need to work on the same page. So it's the list page. So we're gonna go in the list view file. So employee list is here. And what we're going to do, basically, we're going to, in our if I go above here, we have the search. It's set as vmodel, so you can see that vmodel search, and by default I pass this search as null. You can see here. Now what I want to do, when we type something in search, it should check for it. So we are going to use the watch function. So we can add it here. So it's going to be watch, and then we need to put a comma inside it. I'm going to say search, and then it is going to be a function, and whatever we type there, it's going to be a keyword, and it's going to take it, and then we can use that keyword. So here I'm going to dispatch a function. So I say $store.dispatch, and here I'm going to say get employee data. So this is the one function that we already have. The only thing we're gonna do, we're gonna pass the parameter this time. Here I put comma, and then I'm gonna put here a search query, and the search query is going to have this dot search. All right, now once this happens, we also need to pass, because we are using this function here as well, so we need to pass this search query there as well. So we need to just paste here, so that we are going to check. So we are going to check the search query, and based on that we will return the result. So here it is, we need to pass there, so we will check further. Alright, so what we need to do now, we need to go into the action.js where this function is written, the get employee data. So I go there, action.js, here is the function, and here what we need to do, we need to currently it is get method, and we need to change it to post, because we are passing payload and we will be using it. And also if I go to the web, we need to check this route, as it was from get, so we need to change it to post. So here it needs to be post method. Alright, now we need to go to this function in our controller. So that is in employee controller, and our function is right here. Now here we need to change a few things. Currently we are just using the ID, but now we have the search term. So to access the search term, we will call the request, and for request we need to use $request. Now we have these two. Now we can, I have to use the try catch in here, so I'm gonna do that. So let's change it. So I say try, and here, then I say catch, exception, $E, and here, DD, $E. All right. Now inside this try statement, I'm gonna say $query. So we're going to change our query. Then we previously used this find the employee. We're going to modify it. So we're going to say employee, and then we want to select the fields. So basically we want to select name, and we also need department, and so these are the fields we need. Now here what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna say if $request, and we are passing search query. Alright, so if we have this, then what we want to do, so we want to say here $query. Now we are getting the search query in both cases. If you remember, if you go back to the list here, so we are passing search query in both cases whenever we are calling this function. So this is gonna go inside this if statement. So here we say query, and here we want to say where, and in where condition we want to run a function. Okay, so it's going to be a function, and we pass $q, and we need to use the $request, so we say use $request, and yeah, now here we are going to say so we need to pass it like this, and here inside it I'm going to say $q, and then we are gonna run it like or where, and here we simply say if name, and then we want to say like, and here we can say comma, and we need to say percent dot, and here we say $request, and here we say search query, and dot, and then percent at the end. All right, now we need to end it at the end here. Now after this we have this query going on, so we can say here $query, and it is going to be get. All right, and we can put it inside a variable, so we're gonna do that. So that's say employee data is equal to the search query, and now we can return this back. So here just after this I'm gonna say return employee data like this. Okay, so we have an error here somewhere, so we need to close this like this, semicolon. It's actually inside it, so we need to put here and semicolon here, so it should be fine now. Now our previous query, we don't need it, we did here. So this is the data that we are returning now. So now if I go back and refresh the page, we don't get the data. So I added in the wrong function. So basically we need to pass the data inside get employee data function, and this is by ID. So for that case we need to remove the code from here. I'm going to put this code back. So sorry about this mistake. Didn't see that. So we need to add basically here. So I'm just gonna paste the code here. So you can see that here we were returning the all employees, and now we are returning something similar. And so we can comment this. All right. Now also in there I use the request, so we don't need it here anymore. So we need to pass this request in this function, so I pass it here. Alright, now if I go to the employee list view, here we have the dispatch going here and here. So we have the get employees data, which is going to actions.js here, and get employee data, and then we go to get employee data route, where we are passing the payload. So for that we go to web.php. Here we get the get employee data, so you can see that it's quite same. It's a by ID, so be careful about that. So if in the controller we go, we get so by search it picked that one first, and actually this is the one that we need. Alright, so what we need to do, I'm gonna run the npm run dev. We have the post method and action, and in web.php we have the post method as well. So if I go here and refresh, we're getting the data, so that's fine. Now we need to check what happens when we pass here. So if I say Tom, you can see that it is filtering. So if I say user, we only get the user. So yeah, so now our search is also working. So So this is how you do it.
I know gold is not enough.